Welcome to the Corporate Detox podcast. I'm your host, Amanda McWhorter. I'm a corporate dropout, recovering people pleaser and perfectionist turned burnout recovery coach. If you're sick of the corporate roller coaster ride and ready to step into a life that you love, this is the podcast for you. Hey there, welcome to episode 1. I am so excited that you are here with me for the Corporate Detox podcast. This is definitely something that I've had on my heart for probably about the last year to do. So I'm really excited to get started on this journey, be able to bring the Corporate Detox movement into your life, and also to be able to share framework, tools that you can use to start your corporate detox journey of your own. You can expect to hear from a lot of different people on their corporate detox journeys. Started a new career. Some of them have started their own business. Some of them are still in the corporate world. And I'm really excited to be able to kind of bring all of those stories to you for you to have a perspective on really what's out there and things that you can do to be able to thrive and really live a life that you love, whether it's in your corporate career or not. So for this first episode, I am going to be sharing my own personal corporate detox story. So as most of you know, my name is Amanda McWhorter. I am a burnout recovery coach, and I specialize in corporate detox. So, not only do I help people outside of the corporate world, but I also help people that are corporate professionals who, are at a space in their career where they know that something has to change, but they don't know where to start. And that is really what my coaching is centered around, is giving them a personalized approach that can lead them to living the life that they love and making changes in their career and in their personal life to be able to do that. So with that being said, I also work with companies to support their teams on their burnout recovery journey with personalized coaching as a liaison that helps, kind of is that in between the human resources and the associates that I'm, working with. To be able to share information, but to keep really everything confidential, change the culture within their company and make it a better place for their people to work. So I came out of grocery retail. And for all of my retail people that are listening to this podcast, you know that it is not for the faint of heart. It is definitely something when you work retail that you really have to be committed to 100%, because it is pretty much a 24/7 job in most cases. And working, with the public and with the demands of retail as things are changing in our world, it is very, very fast paced, yet it can be very, very rewarding. So I worked for the same grocery retailer here in the United States. They are a nationwide retailer. I worked for them for 18 years, actually about a month short of 18 years. And I started working for them when I was in college. So I started out hourly before I graduated with my business degree. I actually worked as a pharmacy technician at that time and went into management for them. And it was a company that I felt like I would never leave. I truly felt like I was going to retire from that company. At the time when I first started there, it was a very, I would say that, a family atmosphere would be how most people put it. You were really close to the individuals that you worked with. And, people watched out for each other. Family was something that was important to a lot of the leadership at the time. And it felt like a good place to be. So just like anything else in retail, I held different positions in management, started out as like an assistant manager, worked my way up to a coordinator in our district, got to see a lot of different store types and, worked with and helped the stores in our district in a couple different capacities within that time period. And then eventually became a store leader. So as a store leader, I was brought in at a high volume store right out of the gate, which was terrifying, but it was also very, very rewarding. And it was something that at the time I was so ridiculously proud of that accomplishment. Number one being I was still in my late 20s, being a female running a store doing, high volume, when at the time most of, the people that ran those high volume stores were nearing retirement, typically white males. So for me to step into that as a young female up and comer was just amazing. And it had its challenges, though, I'll tell you. And I could do a whole different podcast on that, on kind of like what you come up against when people, your peers, don't necessarily feel like you should be there right out of the gate and feel like they're more deserving because they put in more time. But with that, ran that store for about 5 years, and then went into a human resources role, which I loved. I did not have any human resources experience, but I was a huge people person. Like, the people part of the business is really what I enjoyed. I enjoyed that more than I enjoyed the operations side, when it came to like expenses and procedures and things like that. I loved being able to help develop people and promote them, and really just have a great relationship with not only the people that I worked with, but with my customers. So human resources was very, very, very eye-opening for me. I absolutely loved it. I loved how I grew in that area. There hadn't always been a great relationship between the company and the union, and that is really where I feel like I was able to make a lot of great strides in building that relationship. And it really just came down to having real relationships with people and being real and authentic, and that's just who I am. So human resources to me was amazing. There was a lot about the job that I didn't like. They're not only are you hiring and promoting, but you're also managing people's performance and firing people, right? Which is very, very life-changing and super difficult. And definitely not one of the fun perks of the job. So, spent about 4 years in human resources. And I'll tell you, for anyone out there that is a human resource professional, shout out to you, especially if you've done it for, 10 plus years, even 5 plus years, because it can also be a position that, to me, it's very like, it could suck the happiness out of you very, very quickly with everything that you have to do in that role. It is very demanding, and the pressure can be crazy as an HR professional, and that is probably not talked about as much as it should be, quite honestly. The amount of stress that is on that group of folk, yet they are the folks that are out there trying to make the world a better place, so to speak, make your organization a better place, and they definitely don't get the credit that they deserve. So after being in human resources for 4 years, I took a position locally as a store leader, which ended up being my last role for that company. At the time, I had my son was 4 years old. He was going to be going into kindergarten the next year. A lot of things were changing with the way that our division was structured. If I would have stayed in human resources, I would have been adding twice the amount of stores. I would have been traveling a lot, which would have taken a lot of time away from my home and with my son. And really a lot of the things that I started seeing at that point, this was in 2020. So, we're going through a pandemic, the world is changing, grocery stores are still open, and, it is crazy. That time of year was just crazy, quite honestly. There's no other way to put it. We were running up supply chain issues, yet there was still demands that it was like business as usual in most cases. Especially from upper management, and it just was not the reality, and it was wearing on the folks. And I can truly say that, like, here we are. At the time of this recording, it's, late 2022, and it's still like those issues are still compounding at store level, affecting those people that have boots on the ground, so to speak, in the retail world, not just in grocery. But back to kind of my journey. It was really at that time that I started seeing an area of a big values misalignment to really uphold the core values of the company. And I took that to heart. I truly lived by that. My friends will say I drank the corporate Kool-Aid, but I truly, truly believed in that. And there was a lot of things that I was asked to do in that position that didn't align with my personal value. And that's a tough pill to swallow. So that is, another thing that really led me to make that decision to go back into a store. I was ready for something new. Human resources for 4 years, like I said, like it really can just suck every ounce of your happiness out of you. And going back into a store, I felt was going to be a breath of fresh air. So get there, love it. But it's a time of great change. This is, where a lot of the restrictions were easing up in the COVID and restrictions, and with states and municipalities, and and federally. So there was just a lot going on. So I took that position in the summer of 2020, and by October, I really knew I wasn't happy. There was a good, probably I would say a good year and a half of the time that I spent in human resources where I wasn't happy either. And this was really just kind of putting the icing on the cake. I would, in retail, you work a lot. I mean, the hours are grueling. So whether you're in a store or not in a store, I mean, especially for that company, the culture is always on. You're expected to answer your phone, answer the text, and then you couple that with someone who is a high performer and wants to be the very best at everything that they do, and a people pleaser. And it's just the perfect recipe for burnout at its highest. But I knew that something had to give. I didn't know what. I wasn't looking for other jobs, but I just knew that I wasn't happy. Truly in my soul wasn't happy. So, October, a lot of things were being mandated. There was a lot of micromanagement that was going on the last few years, and it just progressively was getting worse. As much as everyone wanted to say that you had the autonomy to run your store the way you wanted to, that truly was not the case at all. And we had leadership, that they felt in order to be successful, the micromanaging is what had to happen. And that was really from the top down. It wasn't just in the division I worked in. I'm sure it was throughout the company. So we get mandated to a holiday schedule. So a little bit of kind of a back. I am divorced. So his dad and I are divorced, and we have shared parenting. We live close to each other. So it's, every couple of days with his dad, then every couple of days with me, and then we rotate weekends. And that's just how our life had been for 4 years. Work long shifts on days that I didn't have him. And when the micromanaging really got to its height around the holidays, that freedom and flexibility was no longer there. And neither did anyone want to work with me on it. So that to me was the last straw, because I had given up so much of myself and of my life for the company, that if that company couldn't work with me, switch days that I had to work late to days that I didn't have him, which was seriously switching it from one weekday to the next. If they were unwilling to do that, I knew then that was it. Was not a company I wanted to work for anymore. So I ended up putting in my resignation, actually 2 years ago, almost to the day that I'm recording this. And it was around the holidays. It was the beginning of November when I turned it in. And I gave them a month's notice, knowing that it was hard to replace somebody, especially around that time. So I thought I would get them through Thanksgiving, we were finishing up a remodel, and my last day would be the beginning of December. So then I could actually enjoy the holidays that year. And that was very, very, very important to me. So I turned in my resignation, and it was really interesting, quite honestly. I don't think a lot of people saw it coming for someone who was that invested and like everyone said, drank the corporate Kool-Aid, bled blue, however you want to say it. Really just like would eat, sleep, drink my career with that company. It was hard, and I'll tell you, making that decision was equally as hard to make that decision as it was for me when I decided to file for divorce. Right, like that was filing for divorce for me, from that company. And that's sad to say, but I left. When I put my resignation in, like I said, I had not looked for jobs in 18 years. So I started just like typing in the search engine, like, hey, work from home jobs for moms was, I think, one of them. And I was washing dishes one night when I was doing this, and I found the free mama movement. And that is exactly kind of what opened the doors for me to this world of online working, having your own business, being a contractor for folks. A lot of what Lauren Golden was teaching people, were how to build a business. And a lot of those folks were becoming virtual assistants. So I kind of followed her for a little bit, and that's where I dipped my toe into the online space. I had no clue that there was this world out there of coaching and personal development to the extent that there is. I really didn't. In my 18 years of corporate, I was always so thankful for the opportunities that we'd be given to learn new things, the opportunities for training. But looking back, right, all of those opportunities had a business benefit for the company. And here I was in this space where it was like, okay, all of this is going to benefit you, right? It's going to benefit the way I live my life. It's going to benefit really just understanding that I could create a life that I love. And that was something that I really was not I never really heard that, quite honestly. Like, I come from a family of really, really hard workers. And even though, my parents both had their own businesses at one time, they worked really long hours. My mom's schedule was a lot more flexible than my dad's, but I did not know there was just this whole space out there. So it really was just mind blowing to me, all of the things that were out there. So, I leave my corporate career, and I'm following the Free Mama movement. I join some of her trainings, and I learned about being an online business manager. There was a guest speaker, and that was the next step, and kind of like the evolution of me finding myself outside the corporate world. So I ended up taking the online business certification, and it was great because I worked brick and mortar retail. Even though we did have an e-commerce aspect, that's not something like, it's definitely not like the online world. So learning about launching and all these components of having an online business was great. It was not, I really felt like, oh, okay, an online business manager, that's very similar to what I did being a retail manager. And really, there are some similarities, but the online space is just so different. Learning all of those things was great. It was absolutely great for me because I think that it definitely propelled me into this space where I probably really would have struggled or gone back to a brick and mortar type position, right? To an office setting, working for someone else, most likely. So become an online business manager. I do it. I'm still doing it to this day, to be completely honest and transparent. I do have a retainer client that I work with every month. I absolutely love working with them. And I do have some space to add some more OBM clients, but I realized that, long term, that's probably not what lights me up the most. It was coaching. And really being able to help people that are in corporate know that there's this whole world outside, and that when you leave, you truly get your life back. Like, you find yourself when you leave. So here are some things that personally I think that leaving the corporate world has made me realize. First of all, leaving the corporate world has forced me to, and given me space to do a lot of internal work that I was not doing. I didn't have the capacity to do when I was working 6-7 days in retail. Really working on myself and what I wanted in life was, the biggest change for me. Being able to have a schedule and create a life that's flexible, that I can spend time with my son, that I can take him to school and pick him up and just be present with him in the evenings is great. It afforded me the flexibility to work from really anywhere that I have internet connection. So my scenery can change from day to day. I could stay here and work in my home office. I can work from wherever in my house if I want, my back porch, my deck, whatever. I can work from a coffee shop. I can work from restaurants. I can go and meet people and work. It's great, right? To really have that freedom and that flexibility to do that. I can travel and still be able to do my work from where I'm at. So it takes so much stress off because of having that freedom and flexibility. But with leaving corporate, I really found my voice again. There's just something about being in the corporate world, especially for so long, that truly does censor you. And you start saying what you're told to say, right? You don't speak up as much for really what your truth is and what the truth of, the people around you might be. And learning to use my voice again has been amazing. It truly has. It, and not just in my business, but also my personal life. Probably a few months after I left, I realized that I was in burnout. And that is not something that we talked about, even though, I was in human resources for 4 years. It's not something we talked about at all. I truly thought that just like being exhausted all the time, having brain fog, some of the changes that were going on with my body. But here's the thing, none of that was normal. Yet it is happening to so many people. Whether they're in the corporate space or not. Like, burnout is rampant right now. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of people don't even know that they're in it. So that is, one more thing on my journey that has really propelled me into this coaching space. Being a burnout recovery coach is something that I'm super passionate about because it helps people get their lives back. And the corporate detox component is really, not just for the burnout piece of what might be happening to a corporate professional, but it's very much for folks that know that something's got to change, but they're really not sure what. And it's a personalized approach to be able to say, okay, how can you thrive and have a life that you love, whether you want to stay in corporate or leave corporate, and what does that journey look like for you? And that's really what the whole coaching process is about, is getting you on that road with the tools, the framework to be able to step into a life you love, no matter which path you choose. So this podcast is really a project of my heart to give you hope, right? To give you the hope that it's totally doable, right? Living a life you love is something that you can have. You just have to make that decision and do it. And it's not a short road, it's a long road. But it's one that is super fulfilling no matter which route you go, whether that's staying in your current career or just making changes to your life. Maybe there's some personal aspects that are making the burnout more prevalent in your life. Or maybe it's just totally leaving that job and having an exit strategy. When I left, it was a knee-jerk reaction. I knew that financially I had so many months that I could live on, right, before I had to figure out what was next for me. But that's a luxury, right? Not a lot of people have that. And being able to sit down and say, okay, I don't want to stay here, but what does that look like? And having an exit strategy for leaving that career is super, super, super important. And really recognizing too, right? Like before you get to the point of just a knee-jerk reaction, like I had and like many others have, before you get to that point, stepping into that corporate detox coaching space to diffuse a lot of what's going on and hopefully make it to where you don't have that reaction, that you continue to stay until it's time on our exit strategy to leave. So with this podcast, you will be getting the framework and the tools of my coaching to apply, to your life or your situation. But you're also going to be getting a lot of tips and tricks and stories, corporate detox stories and journeys of the guest speakers that will be on here a couple times a month as well. So I am so thankful that you are here, in the corporate detox movement with me, listening to this podcast. And I really look forward to our next episode next week. Thanks for listening. If you're looking for more information on how to work with me, you can check out my website at amandamcwhorter.net and look at different offerings that I have and some freebies that might be of value to you. If you're on social media, feel free to follow me at Amanda K. McWhorter on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.